serious research, scientific research, and engineering research.
Yeah, that's what they do.
So what? The astronauts are not allowed a little bit of downtime now? Ridiculous.
Running around in gorilla.
It sure does seem like this flat Earth guy's just trying to point out the fact that people on the space station utilize downtime because you have to decompress or else you hit burnout and then you're completely unproductive. As if these people go to work and work their whole shift at work and don't, just fuck off a good portion of their workday. They do. Everybody goes to work and fucks off a fair amount of their workday. In most career fields anyways, in a Western society. You fuck off a fair amount of your workday looking at your phone, doing dumb shit, bathroom breaks, smoke breaks, whatever, and they want to act like these people shouldn't be doing the same type of thing at all. Like, they live on the space station they work in. They're doing work, they're just also fucking around in their workspace because they live in it. This is ridiculous. You love the idea of infinite planets and what's on. I do too. Like, honestly, if you could just travel around in space, if like you could have a job with NASA, but your job was to actually explore space physically, doing something like what goes on in like Mass Effect, where you're going from planet to planet and there are different colonies on planets and things like that, or even just like Halo, where they've got different colonies on planets or something like that. Like, that would be cool, but like I don't have the constitution to sit through a bunch of school classes that I don't fucking need to take, to learn information that I don't need to have, to do a job that's completely unrelated. I feel like I wasted enough of my time at school doing that as it was, and I ditched all the fucking time. And I still feel like I wasted a lot of my time at school learning shit that I was never going to use. As an adult, I can't bring myself to do it again. It's such a waste.
It's going 17,500 miles an hour. There's supposedly micrometeorites, other satellites up there. They could die at any second, but they're running around playing with water. They're always playing with water, claiming to grow lettuce.
Of course they're playing with water.
Yeah, they play with water, and you mock
God,
them for
these
it, rather than
flat
try and
earthers.
explain what's going on in your worldview. If they weren't up there, how are they doing that with the water?
There's now clear evidence of NASA using numerous methods to grossly mislead the public about astronauts being on the International Space Station. During interior ISS scenes from NASA's own live feed, the use of wires, harnesses, green screens, and virtual reality have been detected to achieve the appearance of a weightless environment.
Well, with all due respect, not once have we seen solid evidence for this. It's all just theories and conjecture, and it's all being debunked.
It's all just theories and conjecture. None of it's actually been proven. A lot of it has been debunked. Like you said, there have been debunked videos for every single claim that's been made in this regard. The thing is, the concern does exist. NASA should address it somehow. I don't know how they could possibly address it and not just fuel the fire of the ignorance, but I mean, like, it's a double-edged sword either way. If they ignore it, they look guilty. If they don't ignore, or if they do acknowledge it, they look like they're giving it credibility to some extent. If they spin it that way from a conspiratorial standpoint, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for NASA, sadly.
It's all just theories and conjecture, and it's all being debunked.
This begs the obvious question. If they're really up there, why are they using Hollywood techniques to fake the footage? Are they in space or are they underwater? Now, what's really interesting is that they train for spacewalks in an underwater pool with a complete ISS replica.
Not complete. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Now, surely they aren't filming these spacewalks in an underwater pool and then editing them to appear if they're in space.
No, they're not.
Because that sure would be something, wouldn't it?
Now, Simon Dan says no, they're not. I will say it's absolutely plausible, and we know for a fact they've done similar things in the past. We know that in the 60s, during the whole space race era, we did have NASA taking photos of people doing training exercises to go to space and manipulating those into looking like they were actually in space. They took the footage or the photograph. I think it was a photograph of somebody on cables in a harness practicing like repairing something on the outside of the shuttle or something. I don't remember what they're doing. And then they mirrored it, and I believe they inverted it, and they put it on a black background, so they blacked out everything around them and called it a space photo. And it's been proven to be a fake space photo from training. Now, this is a different era where we were in the Cold War period, so we're fighting an indirect war against, with this, it was the Soviet Union, so we had to put out information all the time, like we were making progress we weren't, so we could push them harder than they could fund going and that they could realistically do to force them into a corner where they would outspend what they could actually afford to go through and do things haphazardly and just cost themselves money instead of actually making progress. So these things existed in the past, so it's plausible for them to do again, obviously. Very obviously. The thing is, with modern technology, while it's easier to edit out the things like cables and bubbles from water and things of this nature, it's also easier to detect things that have been removed through editing if you have the right software and knowledge. I'm not that kind of a video person. I don't really know how to do it, but I know that this exists and I've seen people to use it. I don't know how to do it. I don't even know what programs to use. I don't have the patience to do it, so I'm not interested in it enough to get more information than like, oh, that's cool, it exists and I've seen it. Fact is, with that existing, these flat earthers could go through and they could actually highlight these points and prove that these are faked images with concrete evidence if they went through it this way, the same way that they proved that the still shot image in the 60s was a fake from training. Because NASA is very clearly going to have to train people in the water, submerged, on how to address things in space, because it's the closest thing you can do to simulate being in a weightless environment, being in a free fall state, having to deal with being in the water in a suit that's semi-submerged, like semi-floating. So it's not sinking to the bottom, but it's not floating at the top. So you have a similar thing to weightlessness that you have to combat. That's as close as they're going to get to simulating being in space. So of course they're going to use that to train people, because you want them to be as prepared as you can. Like, you can't fault them for doing the most sensible thing to make sure people are prepared if you're not going to put in the effort to actually prove your claims of falsehood. And like I said, the programs exist. You just have to know how to use them. Like, it's not my wheelhouse, so I don't. But there are people